Welcome to the Dirt on Real Estate, everyone. Great episode planned for today. We're going to start off with a quick piece of real estate news, and then we're going to speak with Parrish McBride from Your Inspection Pros. He's a certified home inspector here in Utah, and we get into some really great things that you need to know before you buy your home. After we talk with Parrish, we head out to Riverton to tour one of Edge Home's townhomes in their Mountain Ridge community. Beautiful townhome, so stay tuned for that. Let's jump into a quick piece of news. So for a quick piece of real estate news here in Utah, crews recently broke ground and are laying the foundation for The Point. This is a new development that is coming to Draper area around the point of the mountain. It's going to be pretty big scale. So this redevelopment project is going to start out with a 350 unit apartment complex with 45,000 square feet of retail commercial space on the first floor. And then the developers are really trying to innovate this area and bring in new technology. So one of the things that they're hoping to do is actually bring in air taxis. So think of like an Uber for the skies, whether it's like a small helicopter or a big drone, something like that, that could take you up to Park City or to the airport. They're talking about The Point, this new development, being one of the first places in Utah that could have this new transportation system. So obviously that is a few years down the road, but they have broken ground. They're putting in all the groundwork for this new development. So exciting things still happening here in Utah. That's it for today's news. Let's jump into this interview with Parrish. Today we are here with Parrish from Your Inspection Pros. He is a licensed home inspector here in Utah. So happy to have you on the show today, Parrish, and get to talk to you about home inspections and kind of what that entails. Would you mind taking a minute or two, just kind of introduce yourself and how long you've been doing home inspections?
Sure. Yeah. As you said, my name is Parrish McBride. I'm with Your Inspection Pros. We're a home inspection company based out of Salt Lake County, and we've been in business for about 18 years now. And we're close to doing, I think it's around 8,000 home inspections for the people of Utah, which has been just amazing. It's been an amazing journey. I've learned a ton in that whole process. Looking forward to sharing whatever knowledge I have with you today.
Awesome. Well, thank you for the intro. And you said about 8,000 inspections. Is that right?
That's right.
That's crazy. That's a lot. So you really know your stuff and know what you're looking for. At least in my mind, that seems like a ton.
Yeah.
Well, let's just kind of jump into our conversation then. So, what exactly does your home inspection cover? What kind of stuff do you go through, and what are you looking for in a home?
Well, it's really important when someone is first buying the home that they at least get a general knowledge of the systems and components of the home. So what we try to do, and I say we because there's a small team. There's me. There's a Ron and his wife Shauna. Shauna answers the phones, and Ron is our other home inspector. We have a team so that we can make ourselves more available to people. But everybody on our team, we try to maintain the highest level of service to people. That is our goal. That is our ambition to perform to the utmost for everyone. But so what we try to do as a team is to make the home buying process, well, kind of a fun, exciting process. And also with that, we want people to become familiar with what they're purchasing so that they have just a general knowledge of the home. Some people, when they're first time home buyers, they don't know what the panel box is for. They don't know where the water main shutoff valve is. They don't know where the gas meter is. They don't know what insulation is for their home. And so we talk about every aspect of the home during the home inspection process. So we're going to cover, we like to cover all the electrical. So we're going to cover what type of wiring you have in the house, whether it's Romex, ungrounded Romex NM type, whether it's knob and tube. We're going to cover what type of wiring you have in your house, and then how much power do you have in your house. And is that going to be enough for you and your family? Because some homes, believe it or not, come equipped with 60 amps. Now, for some people, they don't know, well, how much is 60 amps? What can 60 amps do? You know, and just to give you a rough estimate, it's about 50 amps is what's needed to power like the motor for a hot tub. So most of your hot tubs are connected to a 50 amp breaker. Okay, so most of your homes, if they're around 2,000 square feet or so, are going to have 100 to 125 amps of service. So we want to make sure that you have adequate power for the home, that you have properly sized wires and breakers for whatever circuits they're being used for, where things wired correctly from the panel box to the outlets. So is there any open grounds, reverse polarities, open neutrals? So we're going to go over where your panel box is, if there were any issues in the panel box, and we're going to go over, GFCIs, which are ground fault circuit interrupters. Are they in the proper locations, and where are they reset? Sometimes they're like an outside GFI, maybe reset somewhere in the house. So we want to try to find out as best we can where that is. All that information, and that's just on the electrical side. So we're going to go into all the different components. What type of roof shingles do you have? How long will they last? A lot of, I mean, your homeowner's insurance, in order to cover the roof, there's certain criteria that the insurance companies need to have in order to insure your home and your roof shingles. Well, your roof shingles specifically. They'll insure other parts of your home, but your roof shingles specifically, that's kind of an area of the insurance industry that sees the most damage, if you will. It's exposed to the elements, the wind, the sun, hail, things like that. So they're very particular about roof shingles and what kind of shape they're in before they'll actually insure these shingles. So we want to make sure that the shingles were installed correctly and that they have at least, most insurance companies require about 3 years of life in order to insure those shingles. So do you have at least 3 years of life on these shingles, or are they going to have to be replaced right away? And were they installed correctly? So there's certain things they look for as far as your architectural shingles and your three-tap shingles. Were they installed correctly? If they weren't installed correctly, they're not insurable. So we look at all that.
So you guys really do, I mean, more than a deep dive into a home. For a new buyer that's coming to look at a property, frankly, they're not going to know most of the things that you said, especially about wiring, unless they are an electrician, the plumbing, what type of plumbing they have, and everything. And that's why it's so important to have someone with the experience like you do to come and look through the home and give you all the information. And then the homeowner or the buyer can come back and say, okay, what is this? What is this? Do I need to really worry about all these different things that are in the inspection report? Couple different questions for you here. Can a buyer come and attend the inspection with you, or is it more normal just for them to get the inspection report after you're done, give you a call, and walk through it then?
That's a great question. So the best way for this process to occur is for the home inspector to do the inspection without any interruptions, without any distractions whatsoever. We want all of our focus to be on the home and all the complexities of the home. If somebody's there, whether it be the seller or whether it be the buyer, then obviously there's going to be a distraction there, and 100% of our focus is no longer going to be where it needs to be. Things are already distracting enough when you're doing a home inspection. And so we like to be able to do the home inspection with as 100% focus on the home as much as we can. And then we like to meet with the buyer afterwards. So we like to spend about an hour going over the inspection with the buyer once we're done. So once we've gathered all the information about the electrical, the plumbing, I mean, there's everything, right? There's all the kitchen appliances, there's the HVAC system, there's the siding, the windows, the roof, the structure of the home, the grading around the home, proper drainage, All that information we need to put into the report in a categorized way, in a easy flowing way, so that when they see this report later, it's the combination of the walkthrough. So we're going to walk through with them for about an hour, and then they get the report to really get that information. So we want to cover it through a walkthrough, and then also with a really good detailed report that has tons of photos, easy to read. And then obviously working with you as a real estate agent. I love it when a real estate agent is there, because they can also help in guiding a buyer through this process. Because a lot of times when I'm doing a walkthrough with a buyer that's spending that hour with them and their agent's not there, they're going to ask, well, what do we do about this? Is that something that they'll typically say something like, or they'll say, is this something the seller has to fix? Or they'll say the seller has to fix this before we buy the home, right? And so that's kind of going outside of my domain as a home inspector. And that's so it's questions like that that the realtor can come in and say, well, every home is sold as is. And I've done so many of these, and I was a licensed realtor for like 7 years a while ago. I no longer do that. This is my focus 100% now. Every home is sold as is. The seller is not required to fix anything during the inspection process, or during the home buying process, during the due diligence process, whatever you want to call it. Sellers, they can sell the home as is. What gives a buyer leverage in a home inspection process is if there's something like a crack in the foundation that could be structural in nature. Let's say, let's take something that could potentially be pretty costly to do. What the home inspection does is give you leverage to negotiate. Obviously, we want to negotiate. Okay, well, how much does this structural issue in the foundation, is that going to cost, right? And so you gather that information. And now the advantage to the home inspection is that the seller now has to disclose that. If they could sell it as is, but they have to disclose all the defects and everything that they know about in the seller disclosures. The seller disclosures. How many pages are we up to now, Will? Like 30?
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot. So that's something that works to the benefit of the buyer, is the negotiation aspect. That's information that's very useful when, we talk about those type of things that are outside of the home inspection process. It's so good to be able to team work with a good real estate agent, so we can kind of together help guide the buyers through this process. So what's going to happen now? How do we negotiate this? What should we do? What can we negotiate with? And it just makes the whole home inspection process a lot more structured, and a lot more, well, user friendly to the home buyer, so they feel like they're collaborating with not just the home inspection, but with the realtors as well.
Knowledge is definitely power in negotiation. Typically, homes are priced according to the knowledge that the homeowner already has. They may know that they need a new roof in 5 years, and they probably take some money off already. But knowing those things, and like we had a house recently where the electrical panel was bad and they needed a full new one. Just being able to go into a house knowing everything is in the right, or at least you're aware of things that need fixed, is huge. From a cost basis, what would you say are the biggest things that come up when you're going through a home that you're looking for? You kind of mentioned foundation. I would throw in roof, obviously anything structural with the foundation there, but what are some of those other things that can be the most costly when looking at a home?
The sewer line. I try to encourage everybody to get a sewer line inspection. Honestly, the only exception really would be if the HOA, if you have an HOA and the HOA covers the sewer line. If it's a new, especially, and also if it's a new construction, you know, and that's just if the HOA covers it, right? You can get a sewer line inspection from, anywhere from 100 to $300. We charge 150 for ours. But we put a camera down there. We make a recording of it. If there's any issues, then it's on. Then we got a recording of it. Sewer lines are just terribly expensive. I have been to homes of people that ask me, after they purchase the home, they want to know, how can we remedy this? And they own it at that point. It's so unfortunate. It's so sad that unfortunately these guys, they had a realtor that didn't even encourage them to get a home inspection. So they bought this home with a bad sewer line, and they were looking at foreclosure. They were looking at foreclosure because it was going to be about $20,000 to replace that sewer line, and they didn't have it. They didn't have $20,000. What do? You have to have a sewer line. You have to. It's just not worth it unless you've got the money, to have it fixed, or unless you can get. I mean, there's other options. There might be insurance. I think some cities, counties are now offering sewer line insurance. Look into that. But I mean, you don't want to go through it. I mean, if your sewer line is bad and it backs up in the house, that's something you do not want to experience, even though it is covered, even though you are insured. You don't want to go through it. It's a horrible thing. That would probably be the biggest thing for me is as far as the cost of home ownership, especially if it's a home that's 20 years or older. If that sewer line's been down there for 20 years or longer, and you've got mature trees now, if the home was under construction, there's could be some settling that has occurred with that sewer line. And so settling of the sewer line causes bellies, which then hold water and traps debris in those bellies. And then that's what a lot of times causes offsetting in the sewer line. And if you get an offset, then you have a high ridge on one portion of the sewer line, which is going to block things more. So you have a belly and then a high ridge there, and that's just going to start trapping things, and that's how things start to back up into your home. And that's how sewer lines can completely just separate and break. Like I said, we charge $150. It's so worth it just to have that peace of mind to know that, hey, our sewer line's actually in good shape. That's not we're going to have to worry about. It's just an unknown thing. There's no way to know what kind of shape that sewer line is in unless you put a camera down it and take a look at it. As part of the inspection, we're going to do the best we can to see what kind of shape the foundation is in. Sometimes there's very little of the foundation that's visible. We do our best to look at the stem wall. That's the outside wall surrounding the home. The building envelope, if you will, is, the stem wall is in that. We want to take a look at all that, but the sewer line is something you just can't, you're not going to see it unless you do something extra. And so that's probably my biggest recommendation to people is getting a sewer line inspection. The next biggest thing, especially if the house has ever been used as a rental, would be to have a multi-drug test done. So we test for meth, fentanyl, heroin, and cocaine. We have an instant test result, so we have the results right there on the spot while we do the inspection, which is really nice. You don't have to wait for it. We use a test kit that the police department here in Utah uses when they go into a home. These test kits are so accurate; they're admissible in court. They use them in court all the time to convict people. We use that same type of test, and we're able to get the results, whether positive or negative, for any of these types of drugs. Because the decontamination of these things can be hugely expensive as well.
Yeah, I think that's something that maybe new home buyers may not know is what the decontamination process looks like. Can you touch just really briefly on what that looks like for maybe some of the bigger ones like meth?
Oh, you don't want to move into a home and then find out that you have levels of meth that require decontamination. It's an invasive process. Depending on what the levels are, you could be talking about the removal of sheetrock. At a minimum, all your carpeting is gone. Cleaning of the ducts, it's nothing you want to go through after you take ownership of a home. The costs can vary. If you don't have any carpet and if you got laminate flooring or hardwood flooring, then they can just treat the floors, the walls, the ducts. If it's kind of minimum levels, they can just treat it. I mean, but at a minimum, you're looking at probably $2,000-$3,000 just for that.
What do you guys charge to do the test?
$150.
$150 for that one as well. $150 now versus minimum $2,000-$3,000. Very base minimum. Definitely a no-brainer.
You think about, yeah, it's a no-brainer when you consider the cost of the alternative to like having your home decontaminated or having to replace the sewer line. The highest price I've heard for replacing a sewer line so far was a home we inspected in Magna, and they did a sewer line inspection, and we found the sewer line was just broke because we went into water. They had a plumber go out there, and they quoted them. I don't know why, but it was double what you would usually hear. It was $45,000 is what they got quoted. $45,000. Who would have? I mean, that's the cost that most homeowners are not going to be able to absorb. They're just not going to be able to absorb that. 150 for sewer line inspection versus potentially, usually the cost of these are around $20,000. So anywhere from 20,000 on up, somewhere around in there. If you can get it less than 20,000, you're usually getting a pretty good deal. I've heard some people pay 10,000. I think the lowest price I ever heard was like 8,000 to replace a sewer line, which was insane. Most people are not going to get those kind of prices. If you have to replace the air conditioning unit, we go over the average lifetime for these things, so we're able to tell you, hey, this thing is on the, it's. I'll tell you, for example, the air conditioner is 15 to 20 years. If you got an air conditioner that's 20 years old, you can anticipate having to replace that thing really at any time. It is what it is. And we do temperaturized tests. We test the performance of that air conditioner. There's no way to know how much longer that thing's actually going to last. And so to replace an air conditioner, it's $7,000, $8,000, depending on the size of the unit. Yeah, when you look at the cost of what you're paying for a home inspection, plus a sewer line inspection, plus a meth test, I mean, you'd be at, maybe $700 or something versus the cost of any of those things that we're actually inspecting. It is truly a no-brainer.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and if we find out that there are problems with any of those things or the AC's at the end of the lifespan, we can negotiate that into the price of the home. Typically, I mean, obviously it is priced as is, but typically we are able to negotiate it further with that new knowledge. Are you guys able to see signs of like water damage or mold or any of that kind of things?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if it's visible, if it's not being hidden, you look at a well-occupied home. People have stuff, sofas, and other things that are, in front of walls. People hide things. They'll stack up things. So if it's visible, yeah, we do our utmost to look for any of those type of issues. We run water through the drain lines, for example, and we like to run water through the drain lines for about 10 to 15 minutes, and then we use an infrared camera and we scan the sheetrock of the ceilings and the walls because when water absorbs into sheetrock, you can see it really, really well with an infrared camera. It just pops out. Yeah.
Would not have thought that. That is really cool.
Yeah, yeah. So we would like to really run water through those drain lines, typically more than you would if you were living in the home, because we'll run things simultaneously. And we just let it rip, for 15 minutes or so. Just let it rip. Let everything just run. And then we just scan everything under the sinks, scan the sheetrock where, that's concealing all those drain lines. And if there is a leak and that water is soaking into that sheetrock, we will find it with an infrared camera. And if there is that moisture, we're gonna know that there's potentially water damage to that sheetrock and potentially mold there as well.
So what about some other safety hazards like radon or asbestos? What are the tests for those? things to look out for?
So radon, we do a free radon test with all of our inspections. It's just something we include while we're there. It's not a 48-hour test. It's just a test while we're there. I've been criticized by unknowing people saying, "Well, you have to do a 48-hour test." No, you don't. That is the biggest myth that's out there is you have to do a 48-hour test. You don't. The only ones that have to do 48-hour tests are the people that are mitigating for radon. Those are the only ones. There are certain standards of practice that these radon installation companies need to adhere to, and one of them is doing a 48-hour test before the installation of a mitigation system and after the installation of a mitigation system. But that's it. Everybody else, we can test however long we want. You can do annual long tests. You can plug these things in your home and your outlet, and you test for a whole year. These monitors will start picking up radon typically after about 10 minutes. So we leave it there for a couple hours, and it just gives everyone some knowledge about what the levels are at that time. That information is certainly better than not doing a test. Basically, the criteria is when we're testing, if it's around a 4.0, so the threshold for installing a mitigation system is a 4.0. So if we're around there when we test, it's like, hey, guess what? You could potentially be needing more than likely you're going to need a mitigation system. The 48-hour test it's probably not going to change much. We've done a bunch of side by side tests, and with 48 hours and the 2 3 hour tests we'll do, and there isn't a huge swing. If the weather remains pretty constant, there isn't a huge swing. Once in a while, I think we've got a point swing. Usually, it doesn't swing that much. Usually, radon is kind of unpredictable. It's you know,
From my understanding, and maybe this is a good explanation, well, hopefully we'll see. For people that don't know what radon is or where it comes from rocky soil, it's a gas that leaks up through the ground, through the earth, correct?
well, more specifically, it's from uranium that we have in our soil and radium. So those two minerals, radium and uranium, it's the breakdown of those things that causes radon. Radon is actually an inert gas. So radon doesn't itself is inert. It doesn't harm you. The problem is after about 3 days, radon decays or breaks down into radiation. So when radon becomes trapped in a home, in a basement or whatever, that's where it becomes problematic. If you get levels that are too high in there, it needs to be delivered outside. But radon itself as an inert gas is completely harmless. That's why when you're walking outside or you're breathing the air outside, you're breathing radon gas all the time.
It is all around us all the time. And the mitigation systems for radon aren't too terribly expensive. I think they're around 1500. Is that about right?
Exactly right. Yep. Yep.
Okay. And they go in pretty easy, and then you don't have to worry about it for years and years and years.
They usually have a 10-year warranty on the fans. So there's an inducer fan they install, and they usually come with about a 10-year warranty.
What about asbestos? We had two houses right across the street from us recently that had asbestos, and they, covered all the windows, all the doors, had to get rid of it all. They're actually tearing the buildings down, which is why they had to take it out. But is that something that you're able to report on in your inspections?
Yeah, yeah. We recognize asbestos as siding. We can recognize it as so they used it as tape around the ducting. If you've got an older home and you see a white kind of a material around the ducting in a home, that's asbestos. 9-inch tiles, some of the tile floors are asbestos. Some of the siding on homes is asbestos, and the most obvious is that texture they use, that popcorn texture they use on the ceiling. Most times that's asbestos. So we're able to tell you if it's asbestos or not. And then it becomes kind of like, okay, how much is it going to cost if we want to get rid of it? And then the mitigators, part of what they have to do as well is test it. And so they'll come in and test for it, find out how much asbestos is in this material, because there's a bunch of different types of asbestos. There isn't just one type of asbestos. There's several different types, and some types are more dangerous, releasing the particles that can cause methicillinioma than other types of asbestos. So they'll come in and they'll test it. Utah is now requiring certification on asbestos testing and lead-based paint testing. We're working on that now. They just came out with this, and so we're working on that. It hasn't been a real priority for us because we could just tell you if your house has lead-based paint, if the home's prior to basically 1986, you have a very high probability of having lead-based paint in the home. I think they banned it in 1976, but they were allowed to use what they had in stock all the way up until I think 1986 or something like that. Yeah, we're able just to go over all that information with you. We could tell you during the home inspection if you have asbestos or if you have lead-based paint. And typically from there, if you want to mitigate it, and we'll go over things like, okay, what is so hazardous about lead-based paint? Because if it's just on the wall, it's not peeling, it's harmless. Same with asbestos. If it's up on the ceiling and it's that popcorn texture, there's no harm to it at all. The problem is when you go to remove it, when you disturb it, that's when it releases the particles and stuff. Lead-based paint is only hazardous if you've got original windows and you're moving those windows, sliding them back and forth across that older paint because it creates friction and that releases dust particles in that lead-based paint particles into the air that you happen to be breathing. There's a Department of Waste Management. They have information about all this on there, and they're really just concerned with windows and peeling paint as far as lead-based paint goes. So if you've got the older windows, they're going to have lead-based paint around them. You're going to have to get that tested prior to any new installation of windows. So that's useful information that we could share with people is what is your concern with lead-based paint? And that's really it. Is it peeling? Because if it's peeling, the appraiser is going to flag that. If you have any peeling paint at all, basically prior to 1976, the appraiser, even if you have a fence in the backyard that's maybe 5 years old and you got peeling paint, they're gonna have to fix all that before the appraiser will pass it. They get pretty strict on that stuff.
Especially over the last little bit, it seems like.
Yep.
We are kind of running out of time here, and I appreciate you so much for coming on. We'll definitely have to have you on again because there's so much to talk about.
Isn't there? There's a lot. There's a lot.
So much. But could you leave us with just a nugget of, I don't know, biggest things that you're looking for or that you would recommend buyers look for in a home that they're looking at?
That's obviously going to be up to the buyer. Some people are more, want to be more handy with the home. Other people don't want to have any, they don't want to deal with nothing with the home. There's a home for everybody, and we just got to find the right buyer for the right home. Who are you? Is this the area you want to live in? I would say if we're not available to do an inspection, just get somebody who is certified. Here's the thing about Utah. We can't be licensed as home inspectors in Utah like a real estate agent. They're licensed to practice real estate. Home inspectors are not licensed in Utah right now to practice home inspecting. So the best thing you got is certifications. Okay, so I've held ASHI certifications and NACHI certifications, master certifications, master certified. Master certified means you've had 3 years experience, you've performed, I think it's a minimum of 500 inspections or something. So if you get a master certified home inspector, you're probably going to get a pretty good home inspection, I would say. I would look for a master certified home inspector, again, if we're not available to do it, or at least somebody that has, like our other inspector, he's been trained for months and months and months by me, who is a master certified home inspector, and he asks me questions all the time. If he's doing an inspection, he's asking me questions. Hey, what would you say about this? What would you say about this? What would you say about this? If he's on his own, so he's able to get the information he needs from somebody. So just make sure that whoever you pick is, at least under the guidance of an experienced, certified home inspector. And more than likely, you'll have a pretty good experience. Your biggest thing is inexperienced home inspectors who don't have any guidance. They have a higher probability of freaking you out about things. I know I was once in that stage. My first 3, 4 years, I I erred on the side of caution. And so I would just call things out all the time that were just minor, silly things, because I wasn't sure. Don't get anybody that's just gonna be your cheapest person. Your cheapest people are typically those that need the experience. In order to get the experience, they lower their prices. That's what I did, and you're gonna get a lot of times what you pay for.
That was great. Thank you so much. And we'll put your the info for your inspection pros in the show notes so people can reach out to you guys and schedule if they want to. And always they can reach out to me and I can connect them as well. So thank you so much, Parrish. We'll definitely have you on again in the future, but thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Will. Appreciate it.
Guys, we're back in Riverton again with Edge Homes. This is the Mountain Ridge community. We're in one of their awesome townhomes today, right next to Mountain Ridge High School. Let's get into this house. Okay, we're coming in from the front door. Immediately, you've got big vaulted ceiling above us. And then as we walk into this great room, beautiful kitchen behind us here, and then the ceiling opens up again to the second level in the family room. So it's kind of a fun layout, and it just makes it feel not like a townhome. Beautiful kitchen, love the white countertops in this one, stainless steel appliances. Got a little pantry space here, and then awesome windows behind us. I love the natural light in this kitchen. We have a nice little dining area that connects us with our family room. Nice space in here. You can put a big sectional, whatever you need. As well, we've got garage off the back here with a half bathroom. These townhomes all come standard with a nice 2-car garage. And then obviously unfinished basement, just waiting for you to do whatever you need with it. That is your space to create whatever you want. So that's it for this main floor. Let's head upstairs. We'll check out the primary. And then we've got 2 other bedrooms in this house as well. So as we're coming up here, nice little loft area. Back behind us here is the primary, which we'll go see first. And then we've got 2 other bedrooms as well as laundry up on this second floor. So we come in, bathroom as well as walk-in closet. You've got a nice shower in there. Then you have this great bedroom. Huge windows on the top. You can even see the high school, we're so close. And then you've got the elementary school just right across the street. Both are in walking distance. Really nice for having kids. You don't have to worry about hauling them to school for early morning practice. You're close enough they can walk, ride a bike, whatever they need. We're moving on from the primary. Laundry room right on the side here. Good space in there. Nice shelving above. And then we continue on. Beautiful bathroom here. Nice tub shower insert. Love the countertops in this one. And then we've got 2 kids' rooms. So we'll go check out this one first. Good space, huge sliding window on this one. You can see the mountains, Lone Peak right there. Awesome double door closets in this room. The next room is pretty similar. We'll show you that one as well. So again, big windows, tons of natural light in this room. Super close to the elementary for your kids. High school's right down the road for when they get a little bigger. Again, I just want to say this townhome, it really feels like a single family home. It's not that stacked where you have, garage and maybe a room and then kitchen on one level and then bedrooms. It just feels like a home you can be in for a long time. It's a nice layout. It's got great space. As always, guys, if you want to see any of these homes we look at, please reach out to me. My number and email are in the show notes below. Look forward to hearing from you. Thank you guys for watching this episode of The Dirt on Real Estate. If you have questions about real estate here in Utah, or if you're looking to buy or sell in Utah, please reach out. My number and email are always in the show notes below. But that's it for this week. Tune back in next week for more dirt.